And Americans are not pro-Putin, pro-Iran, pro-China, pro-Venezuela, pro-Hamas, pro-Fuentes, pro-Tate idiots like Tucker Carlson. They hate this vile garbage.
I'm right here. I will debate you anytime, anywhere. Bring it on. You're a bitch. You.
So it's no secret that Benny Boy Shapiro and Tucker Carlson are not on the best terms. And a lot of it has to do with their differing stances on Israel, the Epstein files, things like that. Because on one hand, you have Ben, who doesn't seem to like it when you ask questions.
A problem really is a claim of victimhood. You're being victimized by something. Sometimes that's true, sometimes that's not. The next thing that happens is that you blame that on society. Instead of you internalizing the problem, trying to fix the problem, instead you blame the society. And once you blame the society, you very quickly end up at a conspiracy theory. If you do not have evidence, there's a group of people who are stopping you from solving your problem. You blame society, you don't have an answer. So it must be a conspiracy. There must be some sort, and you're just asking questions. You don't know, right? This is the game that is played by so many corrupt commentators, just asking questions. I don't have to show you evidence. I don't have to tell you who the problem is. Wink, wink. But, and if I'm asked about it, hey, I'm just asking questions. Now, let me tell you something about just asking questions for a second. Just asking questions is a game for children. My son is 7. He can just ask questions. My daughter is 10. She can just ask questions. If you are 50 and you are just asking questions, I don't think you're just asking questions. I think that your level of curiosity is actually quite low. I think that you don't care enough to know or know enough to care. I think that the vast majority of people who are in the just asking questions business have an answer that they want to suggest, but they know there's no evidence for it. So instead they hide behind just asking questions. In other words, they're completely full of shit. Now, in the end, the greatest enemies of the conspiracy theorists are people who actually are victimized and who refuse victimhood status. Those are the people the conspiracy theories cannot take. They cannot take it because if you actually are victimized and what you say is, I am not a victim, I in fact can overcome whatever obstacles are put in my way because this is a free society, you become the enemy. You become the enemy. This is why anti-Semitism very often ends up connected with conspiracy theory because unfortunately, it is just a reality of the world that Jews have been disproportionately victimized by surrounding groups. And it is also true that Jews have been disproportionately successful.
And it's crazy to me that he shamelessly, like not even trying to hide it, connects just asking questions to anti-Semitism and victimhood. I'm not saying that Jewish people have not been targeted disproportionately, and I'm not saying anti-Semitism today is not an issue. I wholeheartedly think that what they overcame despite what they faced is commendable. Having said that, this whole thing of equating just asking questions with anti-Semitism is the exact victim mentality that he's speaking against, to a certain degree. And even out of context, I think that when he mentions a 50-year-old just asking questions, it's fair to assume he's referencing Tucker, because Tucker does openly like to ask questions.
Anybody who asks obvious questions like, hey, were you running a sexual blackmail scheme in my country? Shut up, says Ben Shapiro, you're an anti-Semite. Well, no, I'm not. Why is it not a fair question? There's tons of evidence this is happening. Are you joking? You're not going to shout me down, by the way, at this point. I spent 4 years being shouted down by the left for asking, I thought, pretty reasonable questions. I have always felt very moderate. So I noticed everyone's been talking about Epstein tonight, and I watched Ben Shapiro yesterday, and no, before you boo me, I thought he made a really solid point. He's like, it happened a long time ago. Who cares? And by the way, we should trust the government and whatever the bureaucrats tell us. And by the way, it's wrong to ask a lot of unauthorized questions. So I just want to go on the record to say I think that's absurd. And it's exactly the kind of thinking that I personally voted against in the last election.
And you'll notice a few things. Number one, that Tucker calls out Ben Shapiro directly. Number two, in those videos that I showed, he was saying those things at Charlie Kirk/Turning Point events. And I bring that up to say that while Ben has directly called out Tucker before, I don't believe he has the balls to call him out on Charlie's stage, somewhere that both Tucker and Ben have been welcomed with open arms. And that whole thing will be relevant later on in this video. My thing though is that Ben a lot of times come across as pouty, whining, and condescending when you ask questions. Whereas Tucker, while he may also be condescending at times, at least he is witty and approach these topics with a clear, less biased head. And that's one of the reasons why I think Tucker is coming out ahead, while also finding common ground with people on the left, whereas Ben is hated on by both the left and factions of the right. And just from an outsider looking in, it's very clear that Ben is not always as good at keeping his wits about him, unlike Tucker. And it seems each time he tries to come out on top, he ends up looking worse, particularly recently because Tucker and Ben's beef, if you will, reached some sort of fever pitch when the former decided to host Nick Fuentes on his podcast. and Ben shared his thoughts on it.
We're going to cover one topic in depth. That topic is, I think, the most important thing happening in the country. It was a hot topic last week, but I wanted to take some time to really gather my thoughts and speak on it in coherent fashion. That topic is the fragmentation of the political right. That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes. They call themselves the Groypers. They are white supremacists. They hate women, Jews, blacks, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds. They admire Hitler and Stalin. And that splinter faction is now being facilitated and normalized within the mainstream Republican Party. The main agent in that normalization is Tucker Carlson, who is an intellectual coward, a dishonest interlocutor, and a terrible friend. Now, before we explain what's been happening, let's make one thing clear. This is not about free speech or cancellation. Free speech has a definition: the right to speak free of governmental coercion. I believe in it, of course. I've always defended it. Criticism of bad speech is, in fact, just a form of free speech. Cancellation also has a definition: the banning of particular people, including people like Nick Fuentes, from platforms like X or Facebook. I believe that Nick Fuentes is odious and despicable, but I've never called for his cancellation. And in fact, I've called for his restoration to those services, despite the fact that I think he's odious and despicable. It is not cancellation to draw moral lines between viewpoints. In fact, we used to call that one of the key aspects of conservatism. The issue here isn't that Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show last week. He has every right to do that, of course. The issue here is that Tucker Carlson decided to normalize and fluff Nick Fuentes. It is not cancellation to refuse to signal boost Hitler's supporters like Nick Fuentes. It is not cancellation to criticize Tucker Carlson for rhetorically fluffing Nick Fuentes and other anti-American crackpots. It's not cancellation if you urge others to stop promoting those who rhetorically fluff Nazi apologists. Those are all elements of free speech. And anyone who says differently is lying to you, and lying for the most cynical reasons, to misdirect from their own defense of those Nazi apologists and their promoters.
Now, I find it funny that he's talking about the fragmentation on the right, which I believe there's a point to be made that the Nick Fuenteses of the right are creating division, but then uses terms like crackpots, anti-American, intellectual coward, accusing someone of being a bad friend. I don't know, it just seems to me that you're trying to character assassinate somebody while trying to claim moral high ground. Nick Fuentes may do the same thing, but at least he's not behaving in a way that's intellectually dishonest. And my advice for Ben is that you mention the behavior without spreading it to who they are. And I'm not saying I haven't done that myself. Politics makes hypocrites out of all of us, and we fall short of our ideals because of our differences, especially when disagreements get heated. But you also have to acknowledge your own faults, and Ben doesn't seem to like to do that. And speaking of being intellectually dishonest, Ben says that Tucker fluffed Nick Fuentes when Tucker didn't multiple times during that interview challenge Nick's anti-Semitism.
My goal is America first.
Right.
It's not about me. It's not about my personality. It's about winning for America, you know? And
Right.
I mean, we want to see our vision realized. On some level, we do need to be exclusive, not inclusive. We do need to be right-wing. We do need to be Christian. We do, on some level, need to be pro-white, not to the exclusion of everybody else, but recognizing that white people have a special heritage here as Americans. And so America first cannot backslide into this kind of inclusive populism message, which I perceive to be more like GOP slop. If you disavow someone because they criticize Israel, if you disavow someone for talking about white people and Christianity, we can't let that slide, because it's easy to say, I disavow all these crazy Christians and all these crazy white nationalists. It's like easy to throw them under the bus and say,
Right.
I'm one of the good guys. It's too easy. We need to push in the other direction and say, you should feel less comfortable saying that people shouldn't talk about their race and religion. Maybe you'll think twice next time. And
I get that. What I do think is bad, just objectively bad and destructive, is the all Jews are guilty, or all anybody is guilty of anything, because that's just like not true. And we don't believe that as Christians. I mean, my hero in life is Paul, I guess you call him Saint Paul, a Pharisee,
yeah,
and meets Jesus and becomes this just incredible man, incredibly brave, smart, loving, like everything you want to be as a man, he was. Jew.
yeah.
So like, you can't, and I don't think it's like mushy liberal bullshit, which I hate.
Mhm.
And I hate all the language that you're describing. I get why it offends you, because it's code for, I don't really believe what I'm saying.
Right. I completely agree with you. But here's my substantive disagreement, because as a Catholic, I could not agree more with you. I love all people, even the ones that don't like us. We have to love them all, and we have to recognize that,
We're required to.
yes. But I guess my substantive disagreement, which I've said on the show also, is the idea that neoconservatism and Israel has nothing to do with Jewishness. Jewish identity, the Jewish religion. Clearly, the state of Israel and the neocons are deeply motivated by that ethnic identity, and their allegiance to Israel proceeds from that. You know, the plan of Greater Israel, the blood and soil nationalism of Israel, it stems from this ethno-religion, which is Judaism.
Well, this is, just BLM, the new version. This is identity politics. They're engaging in identity politics. I mean, that's just so obvious to me. So I get what you're saying, but the problem in your response is it does not apply to every individual.
No, and I would never say that. Okay.
Well, I just think it's important to say that, not to kind of like dodge the accusations against you, but because just that principle that we're all judged as individuals by what we do, our faith, the decisions that we make, the way we live our lives, and God will judge every one of us in that way. And that's how we're supposed to judge. Like, I think that's true.
You say identity politics like it's a bad thing. I think identity is a reality.
Identity is a reality. Absolutely. You just can't have a country of 350 million this diverse where it's just like warring ethnicities, because then it's Rwanda soon. And, the people with the most force just kill the others. So like, you can't have that here. Right?
Yeah. But I would say specifically as it pertains to, you, I think, have said it's the neocons. And I think that neoconservatism, where does it arise from? It arises from Jewish leftists who were mugged by reality when they saw the surprise attack in the Yom Kippur War.
Yeah, that's a lot of it for sure. But then, like, how do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz? I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I have seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are like, what is that?
Right.
And I can just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian. That's why. So I don't, like, why not? Like, I'm pissed at the neocons, very pissed. I've said that a million times. I've been mad since December of 2003 when I went to Iraq. But I also think there's like a true, not just principle, but like spiritual reality that we have to defend, which is God created every person as an individual, not as a group. No woman gave birth to a community. Like, we hate that kind of thinking, right? Collectivist thinking like that. That's identity politics. That's what Dave Rubin engages in. That's why Dave is like just a child. Like, you don't pay any attention to Dave because he's like shallow. But we're not going to be that, right? Or no?
No,
And speaking of hypocritical, he calls Nick out for being critical of Donald Trump.
Nick Fuentes, it should be mentioned, despises Donald Trump and the MAGA movement as well.
You suck. You are fat. You are a joke. You are stupid. You are not funny. You are not as smart as you think you are. And if you watch my show, you know I've been very critical. I've never been this far. This just goes to show this entire thing has been a scam. When we look back on the history of populism in America, we are going to look back on the MAGA movement as the biggest scam. And the liberals were right. The MAGA supporters were had. They were.
So, that right there is just a brief glimpse into the twisted mind of Nick Fuentes. And there's plenty more where that came from, of course.
Which, first of all, Nick's opinion shifting on Donald Trump is a lot of people because of the promises that Donald Trump and his administration have broken, particularly when it comes to transparency and serving the people in America first. And also, Ben himself at one point was the most anti-Trump you could be.
So, is Trump a big winner? Or is he a spoiled brat who grew up in the lap of luxury, had his daddy sign his checks, and then bragged about how he is a huge winner? Trump's three biggest crowds are evangelicals, conservatives, and he's a winner voters. Trump is lying to all of them. Stop buying the lies. The reason that I will never vote for Donald Trump is because I've spent my entire career fighting for a brand of conservatism that is not racist, that is not sexist, that is not bigoted, a brand of conservatism that is not vulgar and vile to women and to the disabled and to veterans, doesn't believe in authoritarian policies, doesn't believe the President of the United States has the ability to order soldiers to torture people in violation of law. I fought for a brand of conservatism that isn't conservatism for stupid people.
You simply can't criticize somebody's criticism of a president, especially when you did at one point. Debate him and explain why you think he's wrong. But I don't think he will. I mean, maybe he'll prove me wrong, but Ben is just coming across as hypocritical right now, as well as just bitter at Tucker.
Americans hate Tucker Carlson's laundered anti-Americanism. Republicans think it's trash. Independents think it's trash. Democrats think it's trash. Americans are not pro-segregation, anti-woman, pro-child marriage, anti-black, anti-Jew, anti-Indian, anti-Latino, anti-Constitution, pro-Hitler nutjobs like Nick Fuentes. And Americans are not pro-Putin, pro-Iran, pro-China, pro-Venezuela, pro-Hamas, pro-Fuentes, pro-Tate idiots like Tucker Carlson. They hate this vile garbage.
So what does he do? Call Tucker a bad friend to Charlie Kirk because he platformed Nick, who had his own problems with Charlie before his death.
Charlie Kirk is not the patriot that he says he is. You know, Charlie Kirk in the grand scheme of things is just some retarded idiot. The contrast could not be more clear. Charlie Kirk is a totally unexceptional human being. Let's focus all our firepower on Charlie Kirk. Why are we doing this? It's because Charlie Kirk is a fake patriot, a fake Christian, and he hates his people. He's anti-white. This is our angle. We talk about Charlie Kirk's dual allegiance to Israel. The almighty Oz, you know, the massive head with the tiny face behind the curtain, Charlie Kirk, lording over the conservative movement. We humiliated Charlie Kirk last night. We took Gotham's white knight and we brought him down to our level. We didn't exactly flip him, but we definitely humiliated him. We took one of their best and we made him a laughingstock. Charlie Kirk was totally unhinged, and I think the guy has Asperger's, so he might have trouble with that.
Again, the conservative rhetoric, which is really just this ideological underpinning for financial interest, they just slapped it right on there. Oh, well, these people eat this right up. But that's not really working. The contradictions remain. Charlie Kirk can say America first. He could say America first all he wants, and he could try to sound like me and say, we need to cut foreign aid, we need to do this and that. But if somebody comes up and says, well, then why do you support Israel? He's got nothing. The contradiction between this haphazard, ad hoc embrace of the real right, real Americans, real right-wingers, which he tries to appeal to by saying things that he thinks they like to hear, and what he really is, which is a spokesman for the billionaires that pay the Republican Party. And those billionaires are very pro-Israel. So you can't say America first and be America first and be a representative of the right-wing people and of the truth, but also be what you are and be paid. That is the crux. You say you're America first, but you support this genocide in Gaza and our aircraft carriers and foreign aid and all that over there. You're a traitor. You're corrupt. You've sold out our country to the highest bidder, and history will remember it that way. You've got nothing. You've got nothing.
And yes, Charlie Kirk has called Nick Fuentes bad faith.
As a TPUSA chapter founder and president, I've seen firsthand how the tide is turning among young conservatives. I say, if you truly believe in open debate in the marketplace of ideas, will you ever be willing to debate Nick Fuentes, or will you wait until his movement forces you to adopt his talking points, as we've seen already?
You know, it's funny. I personally do not give a platform to bad faith actors. And I had a whole open about this. You know, you said, oh, you know, I want to have a question about Turning Point events. And you obviously lied about your question. Doesn't surprise me because you have deceit. But you know what? Honestly, I'm asked that question all the time. I don't platform trolls. And I don't platform and I don't discuss people or I don't debate with people that are not good faith actors.
But one thing that's also come up since his death was that he was getting frustrated at the pro-Israel lobby that people were saying he wasn't showing enough support for them.
And I will say this, the behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. Not like we're going to be pro-Hamas, not like we're going to, but we're like, honestly, the way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat, literally the Jewish Sabbath. I visit Israel and fight for it. And Charlie, what are you doing? Like, why are you, what am I doing? I'm sorry, like, let's just take a step back here. You and I believe that we're Americans and Americans first, period. End of story. We are citizens of this nation, okay?
That's
and
right.
Israel, we have funded, we have supported, and they're up against a sea of Islamic totalitarianism, and we should be cheering for them, want them to win. And you and I have been holding this down, and you probably get the negative, oh, you're just shilling for Israel, whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do what's right regardless of the feedback, right? But then all of a sudden, I host a person that I moderate the debate of, mind you, right? And I give equal time to Josh Hammer, equal time to a pro-Israel advocate, and my moral character is being put into question. Like, I'm an American citizen. Yes, I want Israel to win. Yes, I'm a Christian. But like some of the mess, and you've seen how I've been treated, Megan, by some, not all, by some.
No, it's very irritating.
It's
been so unfair. They were coming after you after Turning Point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the fifth time. I love Israel. I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megan. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this, right?
Yeah.
So,
and it's offensive. It's offensive to those of us who have been out there defending them in many instances against critics on our own side. And now you have a couple of comments like, well, what about this? Well, has it gone on too long? Like, is it time to wrap it up? And the thing about Epstein is just so bizarre. I don't know who he was an agent for. It might have been Israel or an asset, or it might have been nobody. But we're allowed to speculate about that. It's like there's some rule. You can't go there when it comes to Israel.
Now let's accept the premise that until Charlie's dying day, he staunchly supported Israel. The fact is still that even in the last few months of his life, he had anti-Zionists like Tucker Carlson as well as Dave Smith at his events. So even if that doesn't mean he was changing his views, he at least wanted to have people who saw things differently on Israel. And so here you have Ben trying to gatekeep Charlie as if he knew what Charlie would have wanted. It's like not spitting on his grave, but it does rub me the wrong way that you're throwing this tantrum over Tucker simply having someone who's out there and extreme on your podcast. I mean, love him or hate him, Tucker is simply a good journalist, and that's why he'll interview those others won't, like Putin or the Prime Minister of Qatar. But either way, all this exposes the grift and lies of Ben Shapiro, and yet in all of this, he carries some moral high horse while talking down on people like Tucker. But in usual Nick fashion, Nick did not go down without a fight. He clapped back.
Groy Urbano 07 cent $50. Hey Ben, keep Nick Fuentes name out your mouth. You're irrelevant now. Love you, Nick less than 3.
Well, and he should debate me. If he feels so strongly, then debate me. He won't. He knows he won't. You know he won't. I know he won't. I have 55,000 live viewers. How many live viewers do you get? He knows that if he debates me, it'll be the most watched debate in politics in 10 years. It'll be the most watched debate since Trump debated Hillary Clinton. He knows he will lose. He knows that everyone will rally to my side, and he knows that Israel first is over. That's why he'll never do it. But the offer stands. I'm right here. I'm right here. I will debate you anytime, anywhere. Bring it on. You won't. You're a bitch. And he sits there on his show smug. Oh, here's him being here. He said this. He said, you. That is a coordinated smear campaign. You've got people at Daily Wire that get paid a salary to watch my show. Every time I say something off color, they take the timestamp, they download the clip, and they put that in the folder. So that if somebody ever goes off the reservation, if somebody becomes an inconvenience, we're going to throw that out there and we're going to air that out. And the whole operation is built on dishonesty. So let's just stop with the games. We don't need to play games anymore. Everybody knows what this is about. And it's not about clips. You know what this is about? This is about Israel. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that's how they play. That's why everybody's walking on eggshells and got to be so politically correct because they're afraid of that. I'm not afraid of that. I know what this is. You know what this is. Everyone knows how they operate at this point. This is about the fact that Ben Shapiro only cares about Israel. He's a single issue voter. If he thinks you're with Israel, he supports you. If he thinks you're against Israel, he doesn't support you. And they need all the support they can get. Right now in America, support for this war and for Israel is collapsing. It's in free fall for the Democrats, for the Republicans. For Shapiro, this is very alarming. They need everybody to get back on board. And if somebody like myself, whether you like or agree with me or not, you don't have to like me. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to defend everything I've ever said. I wouldn't defend everything I've ever said. I'm a human being.
Now, what I will say I love about Nick is how self-aware he is to recognize that what he says is not completely defensible. That's more than what I can say about Ben Shapiro at this point, as gross as a lot of Nick's rhetoric is.
You can think I'm all of the above. It doesn't make me wrong. You can call me Holocaust denier, anti-Semite. You can call me all those things. It wouldn't change anything because I'm right about this. I have never read an article skeptical of Israel on Daily Wire. I've never read an author on Daily Wire who was skeptical of Israel. 9 years ago, before I had a show, before I had 1,000 followers on Twitter, when I was 18 years old, when I was a freshman, before anyone knew who I was, when I was a normie, when I was a basic conservative, I said, I've never heard Ben Shapiro criticize Israel. And do you know what he said to me in response? He said, and I quote, accusing any American Jew who is pro-Israel of being Israel first is a pure form of anti-Semitism.
And that is what it has always been about from day one. They tried to cancel me 9 years ago. They failed. They blacklisted me. I've had people show up to my house with a gun to try to kill me because of what these people have said about me for 9 years. And 9 years later, they tried ignoring me. They tried canceling me, all these things. Now, in the end, when I have all of the youth on my side, when I am ascendant, when my ideas are clearly the future of the GOP, now they end just as they began. The cancel culture, the clips. Basket of deplorables. He's a racist, sexist, homophobe, anti-Semite, when in reality, the only thing these people care about, the only thing they have ever cared about, is themselves. The Jewish community and Israel. That is what they care about. That is why Shapiro canceled me on Christmas in 2016, because before I said anything, I said, you have never criticized Israel. Isn't that something? And it's true. And I was onto something. And he told me, you're accusing me of being Israel first? You're an anti-Semite. You're a Nazi. You got to go. And 10 years later, I've said a lot more things since. Now they want to say it's about everything else. It has always been about this. This country is at war. We are at war in the Middle East. Israel is fighting to take the Gaza Strip with ethnic cleansing, the West Bank with ethnic cleansing. They're going to invade Lebanon. They ousted Bashar Assad. They want us to go to war in Iran. They supported Trump because they were confident that Trump would do these things, that Trump would bomb Iran, and he did, and he will again, I'm sure. They were confident that Trump would let them annex the West Bank. This is what Israel wants. This is what's good for Israel. It's not good for us. And now that people like Tucker Carlson and myself and everybody else are saying loudly, now that we are saying this is not what anyone voted for, this is not America first, this is a betrayal, this is not in our best interest, this is wrong and it's got to stop. Now they want to say this is about everything other than what it's actually about. Do not let them gaslight you. This is about America first or Israel first. It's not about me. It's not about Tucker Carlson. It's not about things we said in the past or an interview or whether it was sympathetic. This is about the war in the Middle East. This is about whether these people have a right to control our country.
And so while the things that Nick says can be very deplorable, Ben Shapiro is a gaslighter too. And I love that there are receipts of Ben being pro-cancellation. So much about being a true conservative and a representative of MAGA. Making America great again should have been about free speech and questioning what doesn't make sense, because in theory, a great country is where the people have a voice. So racism and misogyny aside, Nick Fuentes represents that principle of MAGA at the very least. This is not an endorsement of his views per se, but at the very least, he's ideologically consistent. But guys, I want to thank you all for watching this video as always, and if you appreciated my commentary, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, hopefully I've earned your subscription. Here's some more videos for you to watch in the meantime. Until next time, peace out.